Hello and welcome to the YYC Soccer Podcast. My name is Jason Kmet and my co-host Scott Strasser. Hi, Scott.
Hi, Jason. How are you today?
It's a pretty good day. Just another Thursday night. I'm looking forward to getting another episode under our belts here. It's nice to be back on this regular Friday release schedule.
We're fast approaching our 50th episode, which is crazy to think about. I'm excited to see what we do with that coming up. As usual, we have a couple of soccer-related topics in Calgary to talk about, and I'm excited to delve into it.
If you are a new listener to the podcast, Scott, what is the YYC Soccer Podcast all about?
YYC Soccer Podcast focuses on soccer in Calgary. We talk about soccer at the amateur, collegiate, and professional levels. We discuss the teams and the players from the city's soccer community, right from the grassroots and amateur leagues up to the university and professional levels.
This week, we're going to talk about the Cavs' first match of the season against Forge and also preview their next couple games. We'll be talking about League One Alberta, and we'll also be talking about the Canadian Futsal Championships. And we have an interview this week with someone that you go way back with, right, Scott?
Yeah, absolutely. This was the second time that our podcast has had one of my former teammates on. It was super exciting to catch up and reconnect with Vikram Virk, who was recently named the new head coach of the University of Lethbridge Pronghorns men's team. So we talked to him about his journey as a coach thus far. He's had a really interesting journey. He's still, pretty young in terms of getting a head coaching position with the U Sports program. I think he's 29, may have turned 30, but yeah, pretty young to be getting that kind of opportunity. But yeah, before we run that interview, I know we have a couple of other topics to talk about, including Cavalry's 2-1 defeat to Forge last weekend.
Scott, is there any commentary you want to make about the game? What did you think of the Cavs' opening performance?
I thought it didn't go very well, honestly. I'll kind of say why, but it was eerily similar to the final in 2023. If you recall that game, it was a really non-eventful first half, but things picked up after the break. Now, last year, obviously, like in the final, it went to extra time, and that was where like the fireworks really started. This time it was, I think, Sergio Camargo got things going just after the hour mark with a very nice headed goal, which was great for him personally because it was his 100th match for Cavalry. So milestone match and getting a nice goal is great. But Cavalry's defense really seemed to unravel after that point. They allowed 2 goals. First one was Tristan Borges, wasn't picked up in the box, had a shot that went through some legs and in. And then Benny Badibanga, the guy who has the best name in the CPL, he scored the winner not that long afterward. Again, I think defending just wasn't there from Cavalry, kind of letting him into the box. Well, it was Borges who set him up, but neither player was really as marked as they should have been on that play, considering it was 1-1 with the clock kind of winding down. But overall, I mean, disappointing way to start the season for Cavalry. Doesn't, I think, say too much about the team overall, but kind of just disappointed by the cohesion and I think the way they would cough up the ball and every once in a while. I don't know. What did you think of the match?
A lot of the things you mentioned, I would agree with. I thought the first half was a bit of a snoozer. Not much happened, and then I think Jim Brennan on the broadcast said, "Oh, this match really needs a goal," and I couldn't have agreed more. And then when it finally happened, the game livened up a fair bit, and I quite enjoyed Camargo's goal. But I found that both goals, I think the defending probably could have been a bit better. And I don't know, I think that goes to show you it is a tough place to play. The wind was just whipping around and blowing around, and that big pitch. It does really seem like, for whatever reasons, the Cavs really have trouble at that park. And it continued on. I would agree. There was a lot of similarities between this game and the final. And
Yeah. And I think you're right in mentioning the wind. It was such a factor. I mean, you could just see the way the ball would change course when a long ball was struck. But I'd say I'd commend like the effort shown by Tobias Warshevsky, especially toward the end of the first half. I think he had a couple of decent opportunities. I think, Tommy Wheeldon Jr., I believe he commended the team's effort in the match in his post-game comments. Yeah, that could be commended. But overall, I think you could tell it was the first game of the season. It was similar to last year's start, where it just took some time for the players to really get going.
I was pretty impressed with Warshevsky's first appearance. I think he's going to be fun to watch, and he just brings an element to the team and the way he plays up front.
So Cavalry has another game coming up, another difficult one if you think about past years and their ability to get points at this ground. But they're going to be facing Atletico Ottawa on Saturday, which I'm really looking forward to this one because obviously Ottawa has signed some well-known and talented players this season, and they've been likened to the Galacticos of Real Madrid in the early 2000s. So curious to see how Cavalry will get on against that team, which came away with a win.
Yeah, it's another tough road game, and yeah, I'm curious to see how this Ottawa team actually lines up on the field. So yeah, it's going to be another challenging test, and yeah, sometimes I think when I'm watching Cavs matches, sometimes I'm more interested in the opposition than others, and this is going to be a game where I'm really going to be paying a lot of attention to what the other team is doing. It's just because of what they've done in the offseason.
Absolutely, yeah. And of course, we should mention as well, Cavalry's first game of the season at Spruce Meadows is approaching. It's in less than a week. They'll be taking on Vancouver FC Tuesday evening at ATCO Field. However, that's not a regular season CPL match. That is, of course, the first round of the Canadian Championship.
So that game Tuesday night, and that'll be the home opener. So should be good to get started, and then not long after that, it'll be the first league home match.
Yeah, that'll be the 28th of April, and that'll be against Pacific FC. So that should be a good one as well.
Okay, let's move on to League One Alberta. I think the most notable announcement is we're recording this on Thursday, and today the schedule was dropped.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a 12-game season, 6 home games and 6 away games in League One Alberta, which is great. That's a 50% increase from last year, which was an 8-game schedule. So with the schedule out, we know that each team will play each other twice. First matches begin May 7th. Matches take place on Tuesday and Friday, and they'll typically be doubleheaders.
Yeah, I think the Tuesday aspect of it is the one new thing. I think almost all the matches last year were Friday night matches. Maybe there was 1 or 2 Saturdays, but not very much. It's going to be a pretty consistent Tuesday and Friday schedule. I think when I looked at the schedule, it looks like they're going to account for the May long weekend and the July long weekend. They're going to give the players that time off. It's nice to see a longer schedule for sure.
Yeah, and that season will conclude on July 26th with the finals. So about 3 months of League One Alberta this summer. So now we can introduce our guest for this week. As I mentioned at the beginning of the recording, Vikram Virk caught up with us. He's had a really interesting career. As I mentioned, he and I go way back. We played for Chinook Soccer Club in high school together. Since then, I mean, he's obviously progressed in his coaching career quite a lot. He started by coaching with Chinook Soccer Club, became the technical director at a very young age. I think he was only like 21 or 22, but then followed our former coach, Thomas Niendorf, out to Victoria, where he learned under him and coached for Thomas's Pacific Soccer Institute, which is like a private training academy for high-level players. From that opportunity, he managed to become acquainted with Pacific FC's coaching staff, became an assistant under Pamadou Ka, which was a great opportunity for him. Ended up following Pamadou Ka to North Texas and MLS Next Pro after Pacific won the 2021 CPL Championship, and spent some time in that system until I think about a year or two ago he came back and has been coaching with Mackenzie United Soccer since then.
Definitely an interesting career, and I think we should run the interview now and hear more about it.
I'd like to welcome Vikram Virk to our podcast. Vikram was recently named as the new head coach for the University of Lethbridge Pronghorns men's team. His ties in the soccer community in Calgary go way back. Vikram, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Scotty. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, appreciate you and Jason for sure.
Absolutely. Well, we'll start by talking about your resume and your career thus far, because you've worked under some pretty well-known names in the Canadian soccer community: Thomas Niendorf, Pamadou Ka, How did those opportunities for you come about?
Yeah, definitely been lucky to have some really good mentors here. With Thomas, everything started really as a player when we were back with Chinooks. So I know you had Brad on a couple of weeks ago. So obviously when he came in our kind of final 2 years, it was of youth football, started to build a relationship with him. And things went well. We got on both kind of as a player and then as a coach as well. And he was lucky. I was lucky enough, to work under him at Chinooks for a couple of years. And him and Nick Daniel brought me along quite quickly there. And then with Pa, it was more a little bit through Thomas as well, because Pacific was always training after us after we were done with the residency out there. So just kind of got to know him and James through just interactions on the side of the pitch as we were passing by. And it was a great year, obviously, at Pacific when I was there with him, and developed a pretty good personal relationship with him throughout that year and our time at Texas. So extremely fortunate, I would say.
And sorry, before Jason asks the next question that we had on our list, I do want to kind of ask you about the move to Victoria, because obviously I remember that, right? Like you were, 22, 23, you'd been with Chinook for a while, and then you move over to the West Coast to continue working under Thomas. What was that decision like for you, and how did that come about? Was that something like he asked you if you were interested?
Yeah. I mean, towards kind of him starting that program and the latter stages of his time at Chinooks, I knew quite a bit about the program. I mean, I had a lot of communication with him about what his intentions were and his overall vision for it. And the TD job at Chinooks kind of came by chance. The original intention was actually I was going to go with Thomas straight away as soon as everything started, but I was still finishing up my degree at the U of C, and only had 1 year left. And the opportunity at Chinooks came kind of around that time as well. So yeah, it was in discussion already, and the intention was definitely always to go and join him. We enjoyed working together here, and he wanted me to come over and continue our work together in the residency. Yeah, all worked out.
So actually, talking about your time at Chinooks, that actually sort of segues into our next question. So now you were able to become the TD for Chinooks at a really young age. Like, how did that experience help you out in your career? Because that's a position that isn't usually someone that young gets a position.
Yeah, definitely. I think I always joke about it. Everything with me in the game has gone always super quick. You know, I started coaching. Next thing you know, I was with 2-3 teams, coaching academies, and then the TD opportunity came up. And I think just at such a young age and an early, obviously part of my coaching development, it got me understanding what it takes off the field as well as on the field. You know, when you're young, starting on, you're focused on your sessions, you're focused on, the games that you're in, but understanding what it takes to run an entire program and an entire club, and the people behind it, and the day-to-day stuff, not just on the pitch. I think for me at an early age, seeing that and understanding that was definitely beneficial to me and throughout the rest of my time as a coach.
We've talked a little bit about, Thomas Niendorf, Pamadou Ka, big reputations, big resumes. What were some of the lessons that you took after working with these two? I mean, or how did they influence your own kind of coaching style or philosophy?
Yeah, I think here in Calgary with Thomas and then also Nick Daniel, I spent a lot of time on the field with them. So when I was a young coach, I was super keen, I was super eager. So as many sessions as I could be on the field with them, I was there. And, understanding how Thomas pieced his sessions together, the details in terms of his feedback to players and how specific he was, and also the demands. I mean, you yourself know, Scotty, right? It was really, really detail oriented, I would say, his sessions. Again, just understanding that level of feedback that he was giving us as players, and that's kind of helped me, especially in my work with youth, understand, don't assume things and really take care of every little detail. And I think with Pa, it was pretty similar, super detail oriented coach, but also a massive personality and someone who I feel from a personal level connects with people really well, and how he motivates everyone around him to do and go towards, I guess, a common goal is something that's, I think super special about him, and definitely picked up some pieces in terms of how to interact with others and really just just showing your own personality really with Pa. I think that's always a massive lesson I saw. You know, he never hides his personality. He is who he is, and I think that's what makes him so special as a coach.
We already mentioned about how you spent some time in Texas in MLS Next Pro and then your time with Pacific. So how did those experiences, how were they different? Like what's MLS Next Pro compared to CPL as a coach?
Yeah, I think my opportunity and experience at Pacific was obviously slightly different. I was a young coach, my first year in professional football, and it really came with us coming around preseason. The boys from Pacific will know we were called the Blue Man Crew. So myself, Chris Merriman, Ryan McCurdy were always around the team, and it was a lot of individual work was our role there. So it was really working with a lot of players technically on the side, getting them back up to speed maybe after an injury, and then obviously helping in the sessions as well. Where in Texas with Pa, I was really more involved on a training basis and on a team level as well. So the role definitely grew, and I think the responsibility definitely grew for me in Texas. Level wise, I think it's similar. I think next pro we were dealing with probably more younger players just in general. I think the age group of our team was significantly less. Pacific, we were definitely young and we had prospects coming up, but with the next pro team, I would just say that the age gap and the age group was probably younger, just in general as well, playing against teams. I mean, you still had teams like St. Louis who were prepping for their debut MLS season who had a lot of experience out there, and some of those players are still playing with that team. But I think that was the biggest difference from a level point of view. You just had more maturity, I would say, in the CPL. But from my own personal coaching, it was just more me getting a bigger role.
I know you've been back in Calgary for quite a while, maybe a year or two now, working with Mackenzie United Soccer Club. So what was it like to return to youth soccer after a couple of years of coaching at the pro level? I imagine there was like a mentality shift that you would have had to do when you go from working with pro athletes where it's their livelihood or they're getting paid to play, and then going to a scenario in Calgary minor soccer again where you're maybe coaching teenagers, for instance.
Yeah, no, honestly, it was I really enjoyed it, to be fair. I think first off, being away from the city for 6 years, it was just nice to come home and reconnect with a lot of people. But I mean, the difference is obviously, there's differences in the level. There's no denying that. But I think you're still working with players who want to improve and who love the game. And really, for me, I'm just a lover of football. So I want to be on the pitch. I want to be working. And it doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter where. I enjoy my time on the field. And it's just kind of, maybe some things that you assume are there aren't there, and you have to remind yourself and say, okay, nope, I have to give them that information and give them that detail. Where we're obviously working with players who are a bit more experienced at a higher level, some of those things are already in place, I would say. So just kind of reminding myself of that, and then also understanding what the players' overall experience is. They're not all pushing to go professional at a youth level, and each player's experience is different. I think the number one thing is that they're enjoying the sport, and we give them a platform, obviously in the youth environment, that they're gonna carry on, as a member of the sport for life. So just understanding maybe different motivations for each player, and understanding the experience is different for all.
I know we've been talking about being with Mackenzie United, but you've also been spending some time with Cavalry in their U21 program. Can you tell us a little bit about how that opportunity came up and what's your role there with that part of the club?
Absolutely. It was towards October. Leon and Tofa actually reached out to me about coming on board and working in the ID program that was running throughout the winter. So that was kind of my kickstart, and they knew of the work I did with Pacific. They knew the work I did in North Texas, and Tofa is someone I actually grew up playing against. So we knew each other from there as well. So the relationships definitely helped. But it was really just coming in and working in the ID program throughout the winter, and now the opportunity is there to be the U21 head coach for the summer season as well. So I'm looking forward to taking that next step for myself with the League One side as well.
And obviously, Vikram, we mentioned at the beginning, your recent appointment as the U of L Pronghorns head coach. So I think we can finally segue onto that topic because as you go about this summer League One season, you'll have that going on as well. So how did the Pronghorns opportunity come up, and what are you most looking forward to about it?
That was an interesting one. It's not one I was honestly, seeking out, but a lot of people were sending me the job posting and saying, you should try it. And it was kind of at a stage where I was looking at what's next for me to find a kind of full-time setting for myself, I guess, back in the city. And yeah, just applied, went through the process. It's always good to go through those things, especially as a young coach. Things went really well. I got a good feeling from them. Of course, it seems like they got a good feeling from me as well. Things move forward there pretty quickly. And I'm excited to take the next step as a head coach. If I look at my last couple of years as a coach, it's been as an assistant. It's kind of been more in that support role. So stepping into a head coaching role now, first off with that League One team in the summer, and then going into U Sports as a head coach and as a young head coach, it's maybe not an opportunity a lot of people my age get. So me taking that next step for myself, I'm super excited about it and taking, I guess, the hot seat. So looking forward to that part of it.
I want to ask about the Pronghorns program. So the appointment has come relatively recently, and I was just kind of wondering, what's it like to step into a post-secondary head coaching role at this stage of the year? Like, I think there's been a lot of recruiting has already been done, and players have made commitments and stuff. So how is that all going to work? Like, is there some extra challenges involved with coming in at this point in time, or?
Honestly, I think the program's in a really good moment. They're coming off of one of their better seasons in a long time, qualifying for the playoffs after a while, and unfortunately getting eliminated in the first round. But I think was a hugely successful season. So coming in and trying to build off that, the beauty of it is a lot of that team is actually coming back. So there's not an awful lot of recruiting I have to do. I have a lot of players returning from the squad last year. Things were set up really well. There's not much where you're coming in and scrambling a lot. I think that's massive credit to the university and obviously the old coach. They left the coaches left it in a pretty good position, and the unis kind of helped me set everything up so we're not scrambling with such a short time coming. With August 1st. Approaching fast and starting preseason that date, and then we all know the university season is definitely it's almost you're running the gauntlet. So once it starts, it's really quick, it's really rapid. So everything's in a good place, and the unis give massive credit to the university and obviously the previous coach for leaving it in such a good way.
I'm interested. I feel like the level of U Sports is just going to rise in the years to come with the arrival of League One Alberta. I want to ask you about, last year's top teams in the Prairie Division were Mount Royal University and University of Alberta, Lethbridge following quick on their heels. So do you kind of foresee the same kind of, do you imagine that the Golden Bears and the Cougars will be Lethbridge's toughest competition this fall, or do you see any other programs that are in that rebuild stage where they're itching for one of those top places as well?
Yeah, I think U of A and MRU have shown they'll be consistently there. They're usually in around the top. University of Calgary maybe didn't have the best of seasons, so you would look at them having a bounce back. But I think honestly, every game in U Sports is difficult. I look at and I've watched some of the games from last year, and I look at a lot of results, a lot of 1-goal games. There's not massive margins, I think, between the teams. I don't think there's going to be really any easy game. Everything we're going to get, we're going to have to earn, and there'll be a lot of programs hungry to kind of show what they're about, whether it's a bounce back season or, MRU now trying to go defend what they've done obviously over the last little bit, and same with U of A. They want to be up there and they're hungry for success as well. But, I don't think you can overlook U of C. McEwen has a talented roster. And even Sask, I think, is a difficult game. So, like I said, I don't want to overlook anyone. I think every game has its own challenge, and the division is quite close. I don't think it's there's massive gaps between the teams.
No, I think it's come. I really appreciate the Prairie Division now. I think it's a super integral soccer league. I've run through the list of questions I had down. Jason, do you have anything else you want to add?
These answers have been great. So I don't really think I've got anything else to add. So I think unless, Vikram, there's something else you want to mention, or do you have any last thoughts that you want to mention before we wrap things up?
No, I just thank you for having me. Thank you for having me on. And Scotty, obviously always good to reconnect with you, and just wanted to congratulate you as well. I heard that the book will be coming out. So excited to give it a read once it's out.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. And yeah, same to you. Great to catch up and reconnect. Best of luck with the coming summer League One, and then best of luck with this fall taking on the U of L Pronghorns. That's super exciting.
Appreciate it.
Thanks very much to Vikram Virk for coming on the podcast. Really interesting interview, really interesting career so far. Don't you think, Scott?
Yeah. And I'm like I said, I'm excited to see how he fares with the Pronghorns program. They're in an interesting position where they're kind of chasing University of Alberta and Mount Royal University in the Prairie Division. But no, they have some good players. And like Vikram said, a lot of those guys are returning this fall. So curious to see how they do against some of the bigger schools in bigger cities.
And we also found out something that we weren't aware of, actually, when we were recording the interview, that Vikram is going to be the head coach of the Cavalry U21 side that's going to be playing in League One Alberta.
Yeah, that's another really cool opportunity for him. And looks like, that when he talked to us, he was just coming out of a session with that group. So they're obviously well into their preparations for the upcoming season.
Let's go back and talk a little bit more about League One Alberta. A few more signings to talk about this week. They're coming in dribs and drabs, but let's talk about a few of them. So on the women's side of things, on the Blizzard announced a couple more returning players. Bryn Mortensen, who's playing her college soccer at MacEwan, and Emma Snyder, who is with the University of Maine in the NCAA. And both those players played last year with the club.
Yeah, and then for Foothills women, we have Grace Hannaford and Ire Olua Omatayo from Villanova and Whitecaps.
Yeah, I think this is one of those situations where she's from Calgary originally, and then she went to train with the Whitecaps when she was like in high school, and now that she got her NCAA scholarship and she went and played her first year at Villanova, she's essentially returning home to Calgary for the summer. So I guess as opposed to last year when she played League One BC with the Whitecaps, she's going to be showing up with the Foothills side this year.
So transitioning to the men's side and the local teams in League One Alberta, Blizzard announced 3 new players as of recording. Aiden Dumoulin, goalkeeper from Mount Royal University's conference-winning Cougars team. David Dudek, another MRU Cougars player, and then Javier Sagaste.
Yeah, the Blizzard are definitely they're going to have a lot of members of the Mount Royal squad on their team. That's for sure.
And then on the Foothills side, very interesting signing, Gareth Smith-Doyle, formerly with Cavalry. He is going to be playing for Foothills this summer.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what he'll do at that level. And I'm guessing that he's going to be hungry to prove himself and work his way back up again. So that's going to be a player to watch, I think, for sure this year. A few other players, 4 other returning players to the championship squad from last year. Joey Plenzik, who played this past fall with the Dinos. Malik Sylvester, who is with Oakland University, which is not in Oakland, California, but in Detroit. He's returning. And Charles Nana, who was with Trinity Western and really had a fantastic championship match last year. And also Emmanuel Dan Akindeni. I believe he also was with Trinity Western this past fall. Yeah, a bunch of returning players for sure.
Yeah, Charles Nana, as you mentioned, had a great game in the final last year. I believe he got 2 goals and was named man of the match and did a brief post-game interview with us. So curious to see how he does, a year later in League One Alberta. And I remember you and I have mentioned him as like a potential pro prospect. So if that's still something he's gunning for, he has a great opportunity this summer to turn some heads and gain some attention from potential scouts.
Our final topic for this episode would be the Canadian Futsal Championships. They wrapped up last weekend here in Calgary, or actually just outside of Calgary at the Seven Chiefs Sportsplex. And we have some final results here. So the men's winner was 9D October. They're a repeat winner. They won last year. And as far as the Alberta representative, Edmonton Scottish, their men's side got 5th place in the tournament this year.
Yeah, and then the women's tournament, the winner was Saskatoon Green and White, which actually has quite a few Calgary players, as you noticed when looking over the roster.
Yeah, I know from looking at the University of Saskatchewan roster in the past that they have quite a Calgary contingent, and this team is basically the players who play in the fall U Sport season. They're playing futsal in the wintertime. So there were 4 Calgarians that were on the team. There was Kaylin Roberts, Alyssa Dangtoni, who's with Blizzard, League One Alberta this year, Dorita Sutherland, and Cheyenne Lehman. So they all played, and congrats to them and the rest of the members of the Green and White.
For sure. And we'll just finish off by mentioning that Alberta's representative, Edmonton Scottish, they, like the men's side, finished in 5th place.
Anything else you want to add in, Scott, before we wrap things up for today? I think we covered, again, a fair bit of ground.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good place to end off on. Excited to watch some more soccer this weekend, both locally and abroad. Saw some good Champions League games midweek. Got some European games to watch Saturday morning, as I always do. And then, of course, Cavalry playing again. So excited to spend a lot of time on my couch in the coming days.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast. You can subscribe to this podcast using all the usual podcasting platforms. Head over to our website at yycsoccer.com, where there's more information about how to subscribe or to leave a question or comment. You can follow us on Twitter or X, or also Instagram at YYC Soccer 403. Thanks for listening.